This is how I created my mini living wall. Most of the materials I am using are recycled from other projects, such as these planks that used to be vegetable web borders. So I'm not going to be too specific with measurements, as you might have other bits and pieces lying around. Alternatively, pop down to a hardwood or builder's store and get some fresh wood. For reference though, my project is 70 centimeters in length, 60 centimeters in height and 10 centimeters deep. So I began by measuring these planks to the size of the board and cutting them down so that they would slot snugly together. But don't forget, if you are using reclaimed materials, to check for any screws, any staples, anything really that could be sticking out that's metal that will ruin your sandpaper or sander when you go over it. It might take a while, but it's better than hurting yourself or catching it on things, and it'll look better overall. After that, I sanded it down using an electric sander. This was very quick and easy, as I didn't have to go too deep with sanding, as I knew my paint was going to cover the green paint that was already on it. In terms of paint, I'm using a wood treatment paint that will protect it from weathering and make it a bit more water resistant. It's going to be quite important if you're not using hardwoods, and it's going to be in a quite humid environment and you're going to be watering around it, so moisture can leak into it. The paint significantly reduces the chance of any rotting. The one that I'm using here is very good. It's biocuprinol. You can get it in B&Q, Homebase, basically any hardware store, and it's in the colour Urban Slate Grey. Next up is fixing all your pieces together. I needed quite long screws to go through the really thick wooden planks, and I also countersunk the screws so that it would give a nice smooth finish and there won't be any screw heads sticking out. If you want to be really accurate with this, you might want to get a clamp and clamp them in place. Also, I didn't show it here because this is a really old camera and it just kept dying. It was the only one that would let me film in time lapse. Anyway, I didn't show the fact that I put wood glue in these seams. So just before I screw the whole screw in, so I screw it in and then I actually unscrew it and then put the wood glue in and then re-screw it back in. I know it's a long process, but I forgot to put the wood glue in, and the wood glue makes such a difference to the strength of your project. After the frame is complete, I used some much smaller screws and screwed on the base. I ended up actually using a chalkboard spray paint to spray it like a black to make it really dark grey. Not quite black, but it's there, and it looks hella patchy, but in real life it's not as patchy. I then cut to size this plastic sheeting that we normally use for polytunnels over small vegetables as they're growing up in the spring. And I'm using a staple gun, stapling the corners, then stapling the edges and cutting away the excess plastic and folding it down so it makes a nice smooth edge, and then stapling it down some more. So then I added some sealant in, some silicone sealant around the edges, just so that they stick right down and that the water can't get through underneath the plastic onto the wood, so there won't be any moisture build-up, or at least that moisture build-up will be heavily reduced because of the sealant. I also went over any areas that there might be holes or metals, such as these staples. We don't want the staples to go rusty and then fall off. Then I found this piece of wire fencing and I cut it to the size of the box. It'll just help while your plants are establishing their root system to not have everything slide down when you lean it up against something or you hang it up. Now I'm not using chicken wire for this, I'm using wire that has got a PVC, I think, coating, a plastic coating, so that it won't rust away. And then I'm using some staples to staple down one edge. The screws on one side allow me to open it back up again and close it really easily, but also keeps the wire in place. And I spray painted it all again so that the wire was also black and the staples weren't as visible. To get my plants, I just went to the garden and dug up some ferns. Only do this if you have permission from the landowner. Do not go into public woods and start digging up everywhere. You can get really cheap ferns and such from local supermarkets and stuff for very little, so there isn't need to go dig out random places in the countryside. Next, I lined the box with perlite and added some compost, and then I added the plants. I was also mixing my own mix of compost and soil together with some perlite, some bark and grit, just to add for drainage and aeration of the soil, which stops it from getting really compacted and allows for your plant's roots to breathe. I then added some cuttings that I had taken from my own houseplants, and finally added some sphagnum moss. This was the completed look after I just finished, and I overlaid that chicken wire, poking the leaves through as I did. I've sealed it down with the screw, and this is it 2 years later. Yes, 2 years later, because I was so worried that it was gonna fail, but it looks absolutely amazing. I love it. Don't mind the bits of sawdust on there, that was from my predators that are roaming around. And this is the final look, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out. There are a few things to note though. It is very heavy, so I haven't actually hung it up on the wall. It's just leaning against the wall at the moment, and as you add more and more plants to your wall, it's going to need more and more water, so bear that in mind, especially in the summer months. So if you like this video and you found it somewhat useful or helpful, please comment, like and subscribe for more videos relating to this, and I'll see you in the next one.